Welcome to the Journos on PLZ Soccer's Prime channel. Thank you very much to each and every one of you for following us. And if you want to join in on PLZ Prime, you can by hitting the subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Remember that the football show Monday to Friday is absolutely free, and you can also subscribe there too. Lots of things on offer with Premium, including giveaways, competitions, prizes galore, and of course additional content. Lots of that coming up too, and keep your eyes and your ears on that. Thank you so much to everyone for downloading the podcast. Hugh, MacDonald, Gordon Parks and Alison McConnell are here with me in the studio, and also lots to talk about, because over the weeks when we discuss things and we maybe throw a little stat out, it gives me an idea for a programme, and I thought nothing better than the Journos to do something just a little bit out of left field. Hugh, because we've got such a wide range of ages, I thought I'd do the greatest ever team, and also what constitutes the GOAT, not only in football but right across the sporting spectrum. So that should whet the appetite, get you throwing a few names and a few teams up there. I noticed in several magazines and right across social media, some people generally consider 2009 to 2011 the Barcelona side the greatest ever team to have played the game. Some people might suggest that, you know, because it's so immediate, still fresh in everybody's memory, the standard of football was in glorious HD, then, you know, they've got a slight advantage. But we're going to try and counteract that with various names that you want to put forward. But first and foremost, have you got a contender, Hugh?
Yeah, I like Saki's AC Milan team. I've always liked him. Late 80s, early 90s.
Brilliant and Van Basten.
I actually think they had, if you think about that Barcelona team, had some terrific players in it, and Messi, Xavi and Iniesta and others. But I think that Milan team, you could say they had players who were the best ever in their position.
Galli, Tassotti, Maldini, Colombo, Costa Curta, Baresi, Donadoni, Rijkaard, Gullit, Van Basten and Ancelotti.
So who's who?
You know, I think there's about five there that you could say were not only the greatest players in their position in at that time, but the greatest players in their position of all time. I mean,
well, that's a big claim, Hugh.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I'm going to say why. And the greatest, you know, there's arguments about it. But I think if you say Maldini and Baresi and Costa Curta, I think you would have to say were the, you know, are at least contenders for the greatest defenders in their position ever.
Yeah, just on that point, see that point you're making there, and this is where maybe Parksy and Alison don't realise the craft of you as an experienced journalist, you, because you pulled out that classic, what I call Hugh Keevans line, and they never noticed it, and you said, you would have to say, you know, anybody who counters this doesn't know what they're talking about.
Well, I think it's inarguable, right? I honestly think it's inarguable that if you say Costa Curta, Baresi, Maldini, I don't think anybody can say they're not contenders for the best defenders of all time.
Do they get into the World 11 as the greatest ever players in those positions?
I think they're contenders for it.
I think the one who's undoubtedly beyond reproach is Maldini.
I think the other two get near it, and I think Van Basten and Gullit get pretty near it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it isn't a perfect science, because if you say number 9, you say, well, Van Basten, oh, wait a minute, Ronaldo 9, Muller 9. It's not a perfect science. What I'm saying, they're candidates for the best. I don't think, and here's a wee grenade, I don't think, like, I love Xavi and Iniesta, but I don't think Xavi and Iniesta are contenders for the greatest midfielders of all time.
See, if you look at that Barcelona team, if you go forward to 2016, you can throw in Neymar, Messi, Suarez into those individuals, and that's quite a collective.
Oh, aye.
Yeah, but you're looking for a team, and I think you've got a strong argument for a team of its time, and we're obviously, you know, the only thing missing here is a pint of lager, and obviously for yourself, Ali, a Guinness. But the team that we're looking at as a collective it is a pub argument, but 1988 to 1990 is a strong one because they dismantled Steaua Bucharest. You know, it was just incredible the way they went about their business. And there was a period, and this is the thing that we all look at, is there was a period where you say to yourself, well, what's going to force me to get away from my normal match of the day and sports scene?
I think that's really interesting because that introduced a whole generation of people to Italian football, that Football Italia on Channel 4. It became a really iconic.
It's a brilliant point because we tend to fawn over Continental now, right? And you don't look closer to home. The Liverpool team of the 80s, I think you've got contenders that make all-time squads.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, Patsy. And amazingly, and you'll be gobsmacked, as I was putting the list together, it's the one that I haven't actually got to yet. You know, Liverpool, certainly early 80s, you know, from 78 to probably 78 to 84, you could look at that Liverpool side. It did change dramatically, but certainly the core of maybe 3 or 4 of them, possibly 4 or 5, would have been there. But of that 88 to 90, of course, Saki wasn't even, you know, what you think it's got to be a manager who's played the game.
Well, Saki's great line, of course, is he used to say, you know, I never knew you had to be a horse before you could become a jockey.
Yes.
That was, he was a shoes salesman. They call him a shoe salesman, but his dad owned the factory, I think. But in a very, very, very humble football background, but a great guy about thinking about the game. I mean, a lot of the stuff now, I mean, it's over-egged a bit, but his team is a real pressing team, technically good, worked as a team. I mean, you look at the quality of the players, terrific. Also a product of the actual time where you were only allowed a certain amount of foreign players. And Inter bought Germans, tended to buy Germans. Every team did. I mean, Souness went to Sampdoria, etc., etc. But anyway, they got the 3 Dutch, and everybody used to say never get 3 Dutchmen because they just end up arguing with each other and all that. But the 3 Dutchmen they got was, I mean, Van Basten, Hullet and Rijkaard. I mean, if you're talking about a Dutch team of all time, there you go. They're in it.
Yes.
Does Bergkamp get in it?
But in the Dutch team all time, I think so, aye. I think, I mean, you would play, I mean, there's room. Bergkamp and Van Basten played together as well at Ajax, alongside. I was once in a house in Stirling, here's a wee story, right? I was a house in Stirling, there was a picture up on the wall of Van Basten and Rijkaard with another player up on the wall, and it was a front 3 for Ajax, and it was Van Basten, Rijkaard and Ali Dick.
Ali Dick.
There you go.
Yeah, I think you've got a. I think you've got a good. I think they're in the mix.
Right.
I think it's fair. What are you going to go for? You've mentioned the Liverpool side, so I'll go through it for you.
Right.
There's the 81 side. Ray Clements in goal, fantastic. Phil Neal, Alan Kennedy, Phil Thompson, Ray Kennedy, Alan Hansen, Kenny Dalglish, Sammy Lee, David Johnson, Terry McDermott and Graham Souness. You could probably go further to the 83 side and you might have Rush in there.
I would put a John Barnes or Peter Beardsley.
But you can't put them in the team. We're talking about it because they were at the time, unfortunately, when they were barred from Europe. I honestly think if Dalglish's side that he managed had been allowed in Europe, you're right, they would have been a shoe-in. They would have been possibly one of the greatest European sides of all time, because I thought they would have dominated, but they were barred. So you're out of it on that. But, are you Liverpool 81, 83? Are you Rush?
I think the most enjoyable teams that I watched, right, different eras, Liverpool during that spell were what I get brought up watching, and it was. But you look, is Messi the greatest player of all time? Is Neymar certainly one of the most entertaining players of all time? The Barcelona team of 2016 were at their absolute pinnacle, and I think again for watching entertainment-wise, I thought they were hard to beat. Difficult question. I mean, how do you answer that question?
You just do, because it's just an argument. I mean, you just...
I suppose it depends what you're judging it on. Are you judging it on what you've watched and what you think is the best team that you've seen, or are you going back historically, like that Real Madrid team that won 5 successive European Cups?
Hugh loves German teams, right? Are they as easy on the eye? They were efficient and dynamic.
I don't know. I think that does a bit of a disservice to say that they're industrial.
It depends what your niche, what you really enjoy watching, right? Is it success?
Yeah. What team?
Or is it Absolute quality and entertainment and flair.
What team are you going for then? Because here's the Liverpool 84 side that beat Roma, and that side is probably near to where you were talking about. Grobbelaar, Neil, Lawrenson, Hansen and Kennedy, Lee, Craig Johnson, Souness, Whelan, Dalglish and Rush.
I don't think you beat that team, Adolf. I think that team conquers all.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. Okay. This is the great pub argument about it. Ali?
I'm going to go for Barcelona. I loved that Liverpool team. I loved the Milan team. I'm going to go for Barcelona just because I think they were probably the best that I saw of my generation. But if you were going back, I mean, like the Santos and Real Madrid in the early 60s, with Puskas and Di Stefano.
5 European
on the
cups
bounce.
on the bounce. I think that's, you know...
Yeah. You talking...
If you're going to break it down into facts and what did you actually win, Real Madrid's going to sweep the floor with everyone.
Santos team that you mentioned once, and we did you'd done your research. I had to go back and do it as well. The Santos team that Pelé was in, you know, I had this feeling it was a kind of Harlem Globetrotters team that, you know, it was full of fancy dans and you know they made their money by touring Europe. But if you look at the quality in that team and the amount of World Cup winners, I think you came out with some stat that was 8 World Cup winners in the team.
Here's a quick...
That's a stunning stat.
Here's a quick question, just quickly. Name the Scottish Premiership current manager who's played with 3 World Cup winners.
The current... Say that again?
Current Scottish Premiership manager has played with 3 World Cup winners. Name them and the manager.
Right, okay, we'll do that at the end of the show then, right? Well, that'll give us a wee bit of time to, while we're listening to somebody. No, not really, because obviously, you know, there are occasions here when some of us end up using 3,000 words and fire into a long diatribe about something, and that'll give us time to think about it.
I did it last night at the Falkirk game.
Right, okay, so Barcelona you've gone for. You're right, Hugh, about the Santos. I did put that in previous research, but the Barcelona 2009 to 2011, I was lucky enough to be in Rome at the Champions League final where they beat Man United 2-0. But 2 years later, at Wembley, I thought that was the ultimate side, and the reason why. And by the way, let's not forget also that Guardiola had, Thierry Henry and Samuel Eto'o at one point in the side. But the 2011 side was amazing because it had Valdez, Alves, Mascherano, Piqué, Abidal, Busquets, Xavi, Iniesta, Pedro, Messi and Villa. And I just thought, I think actually at one point even Rio Ferdinand said he felt as if he was like a championship or a conference player against them because they were so good.
It was Piqué said the great thing to Ferdinand at the end of the first half. Where it was Busquets. Busquets was walking past him, and he went to Ferdinand. Boom, 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 like bombs, because they were trying to hit it. They were trying to kill the midfield behind the board. See, when it comes down to arguments like this, right?
Yeah.
You can't come and say I think you can make certain. So almost definitive statements. I would say you can make definitive statements. I would say that Maldini and Costa Curta are amongst the best defenders ever and all that. But you can't make relative statements like the Man team better than the Barcelona team, because if you look at that Barcelona team and see if somebody said to me, well, I actually set up this computer thing and it's unarguable, and that Barcelona team is actually better than your AC Milan team. Do you know what I'd say? Fine, you're right. I'm not going to argue about that.
I think the age of players, if you've got somebody like Rio Ferdinand, I hate to name drop, but I played against him when he was at West Ham, and he made me feel like a junior player. You look at the Kiora kid, just different level. If he's making that statement, that's a hands-on statement. It's quite a gauge. Players know.
Absolutely.
That Manchester United team wasn't bad either. That team would have Rooney, etc. in it as well.
It's not a really great line from Parksy there. When I played against Parksy, it made me feel why I wasn't as scouted. When
I played against Parker, I said, he's a junior.
Absolutely. Another thing I was going to say to you about that side in 2011 when they won 3-1 against Manchester United, Messi had scored 53 goals in that season. I mean, have a wee think about that. your number 10 scores 53 goals. You know, and by the way, that was in a long run of seasons where Ronaldo and Messi were battering. You score 40, I'll score 41. You know, they were.
But do you like your football as a work of art, or do you like it about success? Do you like it about dynamic Gerd Müller? Do you like it about Ronaldo, power Ronaldo, or finesse Ronaldo? It's all relative to what the package is and what you actually want.
Well, exactly. Here's the 2009 Barcelona side: Valdez, Puyol, Toure, Piqué, Silvinho, Xavi, Busquets, Iniesta, Henry, Messi, and Ito. So, you know, they're a different side from the one that dismantled Manchester United. And that side won the treble and collected the Super Cup, the UEFA Super Cup, and the Club World Cup.
The thing about me is, though, and if I go by, the big thing I've got against Barcelona and my thing is the way they played the game. And it was like death by possession, that tiki-taka. That
goes back to Parsley's point, Hugh. Yeah. How do you like your football?
Exactly.
And the other thing about it, when we talk about, I mean, I'll give honourable mentions to teams that were just maybe winning it once, but they had something special about them. But that Barcelona side, 7 players from their academy.
I mean, they're a remarkable team. I mean, but what you're trying to do, it's like see when you get into arguments and that, and one of the worst thing about arguments about best ever is that you've got to cast shade on greatness. You've got to say, well, I think this because they like. It's like saying, who's the best Scottish cyclist ever? And you go, well, I think Robert Miller, but I think because Obody didn't do this, or because Hoy didn't do this, and you're actually casting shade on people who are tremendously great. And I think it does come down to a lot of times in personal stuff. I like my football pretty fractured, fast, passionate, almost direct. That's why I got sucked in with Dortmund in 2010, 2011, 2012, this gegenpress and this like, let's go for it. Whereas I find possession football at times, it's like that Homer Simpson sketch, you know, I can go with possession football, I can find it. And I think the modern game is really, really wedded to it.
Yeah.
And I can find it kind of enervating.
The only thing I would say, and I agree with you on that point, because sometimes we get to this, we're in this generation now where it's back along the back line, you know, then to the left, then back over to the right, then, you know, eventually sometimes they move into the middle of the park. But the difference for me was, and I agree with you on Barcelona is the greatest side I've ever seen, just on the basis that they had the one player in that side that I think was world class, you know, in the world 11, which is Messi. And they played the ball quickly through the lines. They played the triangles quickly. There was speed about them, and there was great movement, and there wasn't that situation where you have a rigid midfield where everybody sits in their domain. You know, if Messi went left and right and walked about, Xavi suddenly was over in another position, and the triangle never, it was like, as I always point out, it was like the Chicago Bulls and their ethos, which was keep the triangles, but everybody gets a part to play.
That was an evolution. They changed the way the game was played.
Yes.
Because they kept changing the point of attack. Right?
Yes.
And to move teams about and play against teams that are doing that, I take your point, right? You can pass the ball to death. But imagine playing against that.
Oh, it's killing to play. I mean, it is really death with football because you know it's exhausting. It's really exhausting.
Mentally exhausting,
especially when I was reading when I was on holiday. I was reading a really good book. I'd recommend to anybody how to win the Premier League by an analyst at Liverpool and a statistician at Liverpool, and he called it death with football and how, you know, good possession, not just possession, but good possession, constantly moving, you know, the increase in the defensive running rates, concentration rates. But the great thing he was mentioning about Messi, and it's obvious to all his football fans, was that in stats and all that, he was probably one of the worst runners in the world because everybody was doing 11,000 K now.
He walks out the game.
He walks the game. Yeah. And one of the great things and he came up with these things, and it's so true because all these things flooded into my head. He found out that in counter-attacks, teams all defenders automatically sprint back. That's what they do. You know, let's get back. It's like a siren going off, and they all run back. Messi walks. because he knows if they all go back, all the space is there.
Yeah.
I'll just
You
sit
get
there.
that license to preserve your energy. It's a massive advantage.
It's just intelligence. There's a real
It's football.
It's not just intelligence. There's always talent that it goes with it as well. But it's a full package. It's the being able to think and implement what it is you want to do.
And this view that the football is all about space. It's about space, and it's about how you exploit that space. And you can exploit it with pace. You can create space, but you can exploit it with your
Brain.
brain.
The best club team ever is also relative to what's in your heart and what your. The Aberdeen team that won the Cup Winners' Cup isn't the best club team ever, right? But it leaves a place in your heart because as a team, you go through the players. The whole journey there. It gives you something special, and that for me also has to be bedded into the clearly Aberdeen aren't, right?
No.
But it's whatever leaves that impression and the lasting one on you.
And by the way, I've been very, very swayed in the teams that I've put together here towards Europe.
Aye.
If you were in Brazil, as I said, and in South America, they'd say, wait a minute, do you think the whole world revolves around what happens in Europe? It certainly has, a real strong case for saying that any of these teams could go win the Club World Cup and prove the fact, and many of them did. But going back to Ali's point, which is it arguable then that we look at teams that dominated for a period, because domination also has to come into it, and that brings you nicely to Real Madrid, because you can't get away from it. Domingos, Marquitos, Passion, Vidal, Santa Maria, Zaraga, Canario, Del Sol, Di Stefano, Puskás and Hento. Now that's a 1960s side who again defined a generation, impacted Sir Alex Ferguson, impacted so many managers, Alison, who watched that side and thought, well, if football is starting to mushroom out and people can actually go and watch Real Madrid at Hampden Park, it leaves a mark on you.
I was going to say, left an impression on a generation like that. It was formative in the evolution of what is now the modern day football that you watch and enjoy. It all comes from that team and the manner in which they played, and they were the first real superstars, I think, or certainly, I suppose culturally things would have changed in that. You're talking about the impact of television and media in a way that you didn't have before. The introduction of exposure to teams that you wouldn't have heard of or had an ability to see. But I mean, those are names, legends of the game that shaped how people that went on to have key roles within our game, how they then saw and adopted the philosophy of how football was played. There's a great antithesis to this argument, is what you were talking about heart and soul and what makes a team, is what are the greatest teams that never were? What are the teams that you look at on paper and you think they should have been a remarkable team? Why didn't it work?
Well, that's another programme, and it's called Let's Look at the Brazil 1982 World Cup team.
PSG?
Yeah.
Let's look at the Scotland World Cup team 1982.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another programme. Good shout, Patsy. You're putting out a pathway for me. And equally so, taking up your point on domination, Real Madrid's team, which 2016, Zidane took it on, but they obviously had won the Champions League before he came in, but they had a dominating period in the middle of 2015 onwards. 2016 team, Navas, Carvajal, Ramos, Pepe, Marcelo, Casemiro, Modric, Kroos, Bale, Ronaldo. And that's just outrageous, isn't it?
See, what I like about that team is they're nasty as well, innit? So you can have great teams like I think the great teams need to have an element of nastiness into them. I think Pepe and Ramos were probably. That's another programme we used to do. Who are the nastiest lineup of centre backs together? I think Pepe and Ramos are certainly in the conversation.
Pepe's still at it.
Pepe's still. Well, I went to his retirement game 2 years ago. It was his last game ever. It was in the Estadio Nacional in Lisbon. He was playing for Porto against Braga, and they won. And he said, "That's it. I'm going out in the winning." You keep turning on the telly. It's like the Frank Sinatra of football. But he's a nasty man, and so is Ramos on the part. And I like that in teams. I like teams that have, somebody that looks out for the talent, somebody that leaves a foot in. And they're underrated, actually, because see, in modern times, I was going to bring it up, that Real Madrid team. Modern times, we don't quite have the dynasties that we had before because of the way the Champions League is going, and back-to-back winning Champions Leagues is difficult.
But they did it.
And they did it.
Yeah. The other thing about it though, Hugh, which every team that we're mentioning at the moment has one player who's in your World 11. You know, Ronaldo is dead. You know, we were talking about it earlier. When about 10 years ago, you know how you like to put your list together? Ali thinks this is a guy thing, but my nephew and I would put our list together of our World 11, right?
Look at you.
But in my World 11, I always had Maradona and Pele with Cruyff, and then Van Basten and Muller as my midfield to front. I had Van Basten and Muller in it because I just thought that was the teams that I like. That's the football players that I like to watch. And my back four had two Italians, you know, and it had I think it had Danny McGrain, much to the annoyance of Cafu. But a World 11 that I would have liked to have seen that I liked. But all of these players suddenly, as you move on in the generations. I mean, could you realistically have Van Basten in and when Ronaldo's
It depends
sitting
how
in the wings?
purist you want to be. Do you like a Klinsmann or do you like a Bergkamp? Is it the art of the touch and the beauty of the movement and the composure and the finish, or do you want a dynamic, running?
Well, what do you want? Do you want a Klinsmann or a Bergkamp?
I'm a Bergkamp man all day long.
Yeah, I'd be better.
Yeah, absolutely. But then again, you look at it, you say,
I'd take him if you're getting a wee leg off.
yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point, Ali. Well done.
I always think, though, if you've got a Van Basten, you have a Klinsmann and a Bergkamp. in Van
And the
Basten.
one person, yeah. So those teams that you mentioned there are certainly in the running. And I think everyone has got a legitimate... By the way, we're not going to get to the halfway point here and I'm going to say, and now the winner is, because everybody's going to be open to debate on it. But I do think there are some teams that still have to be in the mix here for domination at a period of time, which I think we haven't mentioned yet, which is Bayern Munich 74 to 76. Now, if you're talking about teams that have got claims... Again, we talked about one player that might be in the running. So Meyer, Hansen, Beckenbauer, Schwarzenbeck, Breitner, Roth, Zobel, Kappelmann, Torstensen, Hunes and Müller. Now, that's practically the 74 World Cup winning side there.
Rangers beat them over two legs.
Yes.
In 1972. That shows you how good Scottish football was at the time.
Exactly.
Beat them that mob over two legs.
They were more methodical, going back to Parks's point.
There was a real... Well, German football was, at that time as well, was just slightly ahead in terms of preparation and fitness.
You don't say.
And sports science.
Stuart's inquiry about some of those successes.
I would think in that team, you could go through that team from Meyer, etc. But I think when you go back, if you're distilling it right down to greatness, and we're talking about Maldini and Costa Curta, there's two in that team that they've got to be in any conversation about. There's Muller and Beckenbauer's got to be in any conversation you have.
Yeah, and I move on then, because they won it 3 times, Ali, dominated in that period in the mid-70s, but in the early 70s, I give you Stoy, Surbier, Hulshoff, Blankenberg, Kroll, Hahn, Neeskens, Muren, Svart, Cruyff and Kaiser. Ajax. Phenomenal.
Again, another team that you think had such a massive influence on the...
That was an evolution as well, the way that
pure...
Rinus Michels.
Total football.
Yeah.
Total football. The sadness about it as well, I was in Qatar about 4 or 5 years ago, and there was one of these ambassador things. Kids from all over the world it was a PR thing. They'd sent kids all over the world to come in and had these ambassadors that were going to talk to them. And Neeskens was talking to them, and nobody knew who Neeskens was amongst the kids, which you say is fair enough.
Yeah.
And then when you go to the journalists afterwards, we had a little huddle with Neeskens, and the journalists, the only reason they knew Neeskens was that he had been part of the management team at Barcelona that had given Messi his debut. So every question was about Messi. So I got him for 5 minutes, and you could see he was actually just relieved that there was somebody that knew who he was. And
That's
it
extraordinary.
was really, really strange, you know. It was like talking to him about it. I said to him, "You're the second best player in the world at a time when your best mate was the best player in the world."
Yes, which is a great line. And it also goes back to what Ali's saying we're talking about for another programme. The greatest team never to achieve Holland in 74.
Absolutely.
Because everybody thought they were a shoe-in to beat Germany in the World Cup final.
Holland 78, if Cruyff had went, would they have won that? I mean, they got to the final, got the extra time, hit the post in extra time without Cruyff.
So I think the honourable mentions, and I think honourable mentions just for the, I don't know, maybe they don't deserve it, 67 Celtic, all within 30 miles, is definitely worth it. Manchester United 68, is it worth it? When you bear in mind he's lost a complete side in a car crash.
You're probably going to say if you mention Manchester United, you're probably going to go a decade earlier. The Buzz be beating you because then you with Duncan Edwards, etc., etc. But any team that's got best, well, Law didn't play in the final, but any team that's got best Law and Charlton in it, it's got to be in any conversation.
Yeah, and amazingly, the only team with 3 Ballon d'Or winners in it, Parsi.
Bobby Charlton, I was going to say earlier, I mean, how far do you extend it? Again, I can't, I'm not a student of the game in the 60s, 70s really, or early 80s enough to know, but you will know.
No, I mean, Charlton is my contender for greatest English player I've ever seen, and I kind of go for the 50s onwards. I would say Charlton would be there or thereabouts for me.
99 for Man United, if only for the fact that winning a treble is tough for many a team in the English Premier League. To win that treble that year was incredible. Not necessarily contenders. I don't think they had a world class player that would get in your world 11 in that side.
Keane maybe. He didn't play in the final.
Scholes is the best midfielder in
but
the last
not pushing into a world 11, is he?
No.
And then, of course, I think it would be remiss of me not to mention Catenaccio, Helenio Herrera's Inter Milan side from 63 to 65. Had 2 Champions League finals in it as well, where they had,
aesthetics of watching them.
Suarez was a great player.
Yes.
But again, I mean, one of the important things about Celtic winning in 67, European-wise, was that it changed the narrative. It brought Ajax into the conversation because people saw that you could win games. Everybody was saying, well, the way forward is the Italian model, Catenaccio, 3 at the back, a libero, packed midfield, have 1 up front, and then Celtic saying, actually 4-2-4, switching into a 4-4-2 is fine. You can win things with that, and that led to total football. Surby there was mentioned the Ajax team. I saw him at Hampden playing Celtic. Celtic played the European Cup game. I think it was a quarter final at Hampden, and that was total football. He was just magnificent that night. He was just all over the place.
The other thing about it, Hugh, which I've obviously got to warn Alison and Partsy about, is the fact that you hold the world record on PLZ since we started for name dropping.
Yeah.
And that day I'll never forget it. I think you're about 30 people you'd met or watched them. So it's tough for these two.
Well, that's the great thing about. I mean, I've watched football in
Shameless. There's not even a hint of shame with the man.
I've watched football in 8 different decades, right?
Yeah.
And I still going. I'm unashamed about my obsession and my love for it. I think it's actually not talked about. It used to be when I was growing up in polite society, you couldn't talk about football. It was looked upon as oiks and all that.
Yeah.
Whereas I think it's
all of the moons have to align. I mean, you had Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe playing the PSG, and I'd watch it on a Sunday night. But the managing, the team has to be the whole, right?
Yeah. Balance has to be right. And
pragmatism within the coach is going to stifle a lot of things. I watched the game last night, Falkirk and Hibs. They both went at it. The encouragement to go and actually show yourself. It all has to come together.
Yeah, I don't know. You've mentioned Neymar. You've mentioned Neymar twice in this programme.
Love watching them play.
Yeah, I wouldn't have included him even in my top 50 world players. He just doesn't do it for me at all. I think he's a great. I don't know whether it's because he's you know, if it's not feigning injury, it's posturing all the time. I don't think he had the impact that people, you know, expected of him.
He didn't, because of injury as well, you know, and his World Cup record is, I mean, again, I'm going to say I was in Qatar when one of the great moments of my life, went to the Lusail Stadium to watch Brazil play in the World Cup.
Is that it again?
That's why he's here.
He is the GOAT.
And you were saying to yourself, we were sitting in the stand, me, Ali and Andy, and we were saying, do you know what? Brazil, this is almost like heresy. Brazil might be a better team without Neymar, not because of Neymar, but everybody felt they had to pass to him.
Yes.
Whereas if you just used them for impact, it might have been better.
And here's the point here. You can give us your thoughts on it. Who do you think is the greatest ever club side that you've maybe seen? Or when you look at it, if you're more of a statistician, if you have all the elements that we have thrown into the mix here, you know, the time, the world-class players, the style of football, their dominance, all of these things can come into the equation. And it may well be, as Gordon has alluded to, you just have the love of the way they play that game. So it depends on which category and genre and style that you formulate your answer. But we'd love to know. Put it in the comments below as well. And it will be one of those programmes we could go back to in another generation and they'd offer something completely different. As time goes on, sadly, Alison, the memory fades, not just for the people who are talking about it, but the images fade, and 1960s Real Madrid side slip further and further back into the memory banks, and there's less of a recollection and less of paying homage to them.
Yeah, and also too, you don't have the same commercial honing in that you do now. So just now you'll have footage of that great Barcelona team everywhere. Like, you can go onto YouTube and you'll find it in colour. It's been well filmed. There have been cameras. You're probably talking multiple cameras at stadium. Great shots. It's quite artistic in elements. You go back to the 60s. It's grainy, black and white footage for a lot of it. It's not as aesthetically pleasing on the eye, and certainly for up and coming generations, you would have to do your homework. You have to go and look for it. You have to go and find it out. So you're right, it fades. That's just life.
No.
Yeah.
But it's funny thing about football, though, is that this is just me. But I talk to people and they have the same thing. That, like, for example, I could rattle off a 1970 Leeds United team from the top of my head, or a 1972 Ipswich Town team from the top of my head. But I'm not quite sure where my car keys are at the moment.
Yes, absolutely, and that's a very good point.
But there's a wee football could just press that in a pat of butter, and you never forget.
It's almost formative. It's part of your formative development in years that it evokes memories of a different time too. It'll evoke all kinds of memories of parts of your life.
You always think that when you were on school holidays that it was always sunny.
Yeah.
Football's the same.
Yeah.
Not what I was living. But anyway, apart from that, the next section, which I think will really kill us all off, is how do you judge the GOAT?
Well, you don't.
So that's all we've got time for. But is the the criteria for this? Is it most titles? Is it trophy? Is it the trophies you've got in your cabinet? Is it the way you played the game? Is it the impact you had in that particular generation? There's all of those things that go back to the greatest team are now in the GOAT, and I'm saying overall player style, long-term dominance. What other circumstances do you think come into play, parts?
It all depends on the sport, and if you can set yourself on a level above the rest, which is difficult. It's about durability. It's about it's a hard thing to continually get to the well and have that within yourself to go.
Here's my argument.
That's what separates.
We also could dedicate one programme to the GOAT as far as football is concerned, because there's an argument for Pele, there's an argument for Messi, there's an argument for Maradona, and I'm going to throw this in slightly contentious. There's an argument for Ronaldo based on the stats, which I think, many people, when he hangs up his boots, will say, wait a minute, you have to look at this boy. So that's the football aspect of it. But I think Michael Jordan in basketball threw up something which, again, calls into question in every sport who the GOAT is, because he's never in any interview said he's the greatest. He's never acknowledged that he should be determined as the greatest. And his reply with great humility is quite simply, you know, okay, I won 6 titles. He says, but, you know, Bill Russell won 11. Mm-hmm. Bill Russell, in an early part of the basketball, which may not have been as popular, may not have been as dramatic a change as Jordan, had an impact on basketball globally. You know, but he won 11 championships. And it, for me, that dismantles the notion when you go to Hugh tennis. Because I bow to what Patsy's saying about it as well. I am very much one of those people who wants someone that I just loved watching him play, someone that, you know, may have gone on to greater success had it not been for injury, but also someone who played that sport the way I like to see it played. You know, the GOAT, if you're looking at it, everybody will say it's Djokovic. Mm-hmm. For me, the greatest player of all time is Federer. Mm-hmm. But, you know, and somebody would say, well, wait a minute, what about Nadal? 14 French Opens.
I think the only thing about the tennis debate, I think it's become crystallised that the what we can call the contemporary players have just about nullified any claims for like a Samaras, even a Lever, an Agassi, even a Jimmy Connors. Jimmy Connors won over 100 tournaments and 8 Grand Slams.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
He was my boyhood hero.
I mean, so... But these guys, and the argument tends to be now about the big...
You cannot be serious here. You cannot be serious.
But the thing I would say about Djokovic, all stats point to Djokovic. Won more Grand Slams. He's won multiple Grand Slams in the different... surfaces, so he can he's got a better head-to-head against Federer, he's got a better head-to-head against Nadal, and they all played roughly at the same time. But the argument moves out if you say, well, who did you love watching? And one of the great joys that I had in my life was covering tennis tournaments. And in the middle, even the most busy day, and these days you were pumping out thousands of words, you would still find time to go out and watch at least a set. And even if Roger Federer wasn't your job for the day, you go out and watch a set of Federer. You know, I think he was beautiful to watch.
Was McEnroe not in that category?
McEnroe was more dynamic to watch. You watched him for a different reason. You watched him for the explosiveness and his volatility. But for Federer, I think you watched him for his grace. I think Federer was... but Djokovic just kills him on stats.
Yeah, I watched as a kid. I loved Jimmy Connors because quite simply he never knew when he was beaten. Mm-hmm. He's got the most titles ever. Nobody's near him on that. But I don't know, was tennis a thing, Ali, that you could define somebody that you liked watching?
I like Jimmy Connors as well. It's my mum loved Jimmy Connors. I remember growing up, and like the only tennis we watched was Wimbledon. It's the only time you were ever exposed to any kind of tennis. And everyone's out in the street for 5 minutes after it, like hitting a tennis ball. But yeah, like McEnroe would be like my first formative memories.
I loved Henri Leconte because I just loved his name.
You loved who?
Henri Leconte.
Yeah. And then Agassi coming through. I remember watching Agassi come through, watching, and then Andy Murray gives you a whole fresh perspective and interest in the Williams sisters.
Can I throw in a wee caveat? I've covered Wimbledon also, and it's how much respect you give for the sport. And I think there's a kind of football's a level playing field. To get to the top in tennis, you need a lot of finance. It's very elite. There's not kids for Castlemont going to show how good they are.
You reckon you need £1 million to get to that, to get to the point where you're in there contending? It's a lot of money.
So you're isolating, you're excluding so many, and I just can't find to give it the respect that you have for it.
Yeah, and with the same, argument over, tennis, I think some people would say, well, there are many great athletes in athletics. Usain Bolt, I think, for the explosiveness, the records, the 8 Olympic golds. Some people would then say, well, wait a minute, what about swimming?
Phelps,
Mark Spitz.
Or something like that.
Yeah, Phelps is out on his own. So there's an argument for that, and equally so with rugby. Jonah Lumu, Richie McCaw, Brian O'Driscoll, Gareth Edwards, David Campese. They all have great things. The best one for me ever, for an argument, is when I watched the old American journalists all sitting down on an old ESPN programme where they basically all sit there, and one of them's got a cigar. I can't remember his name.
That's Sugar.
Yeah, and they sits there with a cigar, and they turn around and they go, well, you know, it could have been Rocky Marciano, it could have been Joe Louis, and then, you know, they get on to Ali, and I thought to myself, wow, it's such a great argument. For me, Ali was everything. People would say Mike Tyson was explosive. Other people say, wait a minute, Floyd Mayweather Jr. has to be in the mix.
But you're touching on a territory here where legacy, damage, Carol Lewis, evolution. Everybody wanted to be a sprinter. When I was at school, when Carol Lewis was running riot, he changed. He was a pop star sprinter. He changed everything. But his legacy's been damaged, stained, Tyson stained.
Yeah.
How can you be the GOAT if you've got that baggage now tagged around your career?
Yeah, well, I mean, if anything, Hugh, that's why Muhammad Ali is the GOAT in boxing, because if for 3 years, can you imagine the fights that he would have had and the sharpness he would have had continuing to fight from 1967 to 70, had he not, you know, said, I'm not going to fight in Vietnam? And his, if you're talking about characters being stained by their actions, his was enhanced by his action.
The great thing about Ali as well is Ali beat monsters, and by that I mean genuinely, I'm old enough to know that Sonny Liston was a monster. I mean, people forget that when Ali was going in the ring against Sonny Liston, everybody feared for his health. You know, they thought, why is this young kid going in against this convict? You know, literally. And Liston, then he beat another monster in George Foreman in Ali's dressing room before he went out to fight for him. The Bandini and the rest of the crew were praying that he would come back alive. I mean, there's no exaggeration. They thought Ali's going out there to get killed, and he beat them. But there's a counter argument amongst boxing aficionados that Ali wouldn't be in the top 3 heavyweights of all time, never mind boxers of all time, because they're looking at it, you know, with stats and skill and all that. And that's why GOAT comes into it. To me, Muhammad Ali is the greatest sportsman ever.
Yes, I agree with you.
Ever. To me.
Yeah.
But I can see the argument that somebody says to me, but by the way, wasn't he the greatest heavyweight ever? Fine. I get that other argument. I get the stats. I get that. I get the heads to heads. I get the records. But I think when you talk about GOAT, it covers so many things, and I'm really comfortable with Ali being the greatest sportsman of all time for me.
Yeah, the other thing about it, Ali, which you probably, you know, in 1974 to even, you know, if you had a colour telly in 1974, you were
a telly in
1974. Well, Hugh will remember this, and your mum will definitely remember this, Ali. You actually rented the television.
Man came out on a Friday.
Off StepX or DER. Is there any others that you can think of in there where you rented the television and 3 channels?
Radio rental.
And by the way, you know how you get these modern day television controls? That was me, because I was the youngest in the family, Ali. I had to go up and push the
I
channel.
remember a night I'm the youngest of 4, and we were all arguing. Actually, we did a news TV, and it's the very first time we did remote control, and we were all arguing over who was watching what. There was only one TV. So my mum came in, and she was like, I'm just putting it off. You're all arguing, just putting it off. And she couldn't work how to put it off. And my brother went, you try to do this.
But with that in mind, 1974, I can remember as a 9-year-old, and this is the impact, and this is what I'm talking about, as you were mentioning, Gordon, about just having something that's, as you're going through your formative years, that sticks with you. And as well as the narrative around Muhammad Ali, in 1974 as a 9-year-old, I can remember when the fight was actually being shown on British television, actually, I can remember crying at the fear of him being battered by George Foreman, because at that time George Foreman wasn't just he was doing what Tyson was doing. He was walking into a room and knocking people out within the first round. He was fearsome, and I can remember thinking he's going to lose his life. And when Ali, and he comes out in the first round, starts battering him, and you're thinking, what's his tactic? And then he goes into a rope-a-dope, sucks all the energy out of Foreman, and then I think it was round 8 or 9, he comes up with the ultimate punch.
Extraordinary. Obviously, you have to reference Rumble in the Jungle here. That would be my only. Any views that I have would be shaped by reading about it. And I just go. I think I'm really envious of journalists of that time, of the access that they had, the stories that they had, like Hugh McIlvanney talking about turning up.
McIlvanney, after the fight, went back to Ali's villa, chapped in the door. Ali was lying in his bed. Any chance of getting a shot of the champ? And Ali says, "Come in." So Ali lay in his bed, or actually it was a chair, sitting in a big chair, and Ali and McIlvanney talked all right through the night.
Was there another guy from the Mirror not with him?
That's right, Ken, was a Welsh guy. I can't even remember Ken's second name, but when they went out, Ken went out for a fag, and McIlvanney had the cigar, and because they had this biblical rainfall just after the fight, so Ali's villa was then surrounded by water, so they couldn't even get a taxi. So they had to wait till this water to abate, and they're standing there. They just had 3 hours after the greatest sensation in world sport, exclusive with Ali, and McIlvanney just pulls his tugs on his cigar and turned round to wee Ken and said, "Do you think there's anything in that?" So I think McIlvanney ended up writing the intro, and I don't want to spoil it, but it was something like, it's typical of Muhammad Ali's capacity for greatness, that not only did he roll away the stone, but he hit George Foreman over the head with it.
It's a great line, isn't it?
See, you're talking about marketing, projection, ability to generate theatre. Muhammad Ali had all that, right? But he was wise to it early on. I mean, he played up to it, right?
Imagine Muhammad Ali in a current contemporary American setting.
Wow.
Yeah, he'd still be getting, the claims that he should be in jail. Just before we finish on this, and I think it's only right that I highlight this, one of the things I'm going to talk about, just throw it in to be slightly contentious on this, and it's just on you when you're talking about marketing, projection, image, the whole thing. If you were looking for the GOAT in golf, it's still Jack Nicklaus for me. Just basically because you don't win the Masters at 56. He's won it 6 times. He's got 18 majors, and if we're going on titles alone and the big ones, he's 3 ahead of Tiger. Many people say Tiger's the greatest ever, but as I looked at Jack Nicklaus and everything about him, and he was my dad's hero, certainly I loved him as a golfer. 82 PGA wins, changed the sports profile, 3rd most PGA Tour wins, Masters 6 time, 20, this is the best one, 24 straight seasons he was in at least one top 10 finish from 1960 to 1983. He's the greatest golfer of all time. And that for me that's another programme that somebody could argue on.
If you're for a black man to go and make that impact in golf and actually save golf, as Tiger Woods did. And we're talking about marketing again and image and everything, the whole...
But you also talked about being tainted and baggage.
Massively tainted, right? But if my life depended on it and it was a two-man shootout, Tiger Woods is hitting the ball off the tee for me to save my life.
Well, I think the great thing...
I never thought I was going to do that in a programme, did you?
The whole thing about Tiger Woods is I really feel for him, because these people talk about taintedness. Tainted with what? With sex scandals. I mean, if you talked about Arnie Palmer and others, their sex scandals just weren't publicised. Tiger's was. I'm not meaning
different climate,
and I think there's a lot of racism.
Have you got lawyers watching this?
Well, I was going to say, do you remember when we were on the SFA Hall of Fame panel and somebody argued over the credibility of people who had been embroiled in all sorts of naughtiness? And I said, listen, if we're starting to embargo people who have got a dodgy past, nobody's in the Hall of Fame.
Nobody gets in it. It's not a Hall of Fame. It's a telephone booth of fame. You only get one in. The only word I would say in Jack Nicklaus is that Jack Nicklaus to me is the greatest golfer of all time, but nobody has played golf as well as Tiger Woods. I think Tiger Woods won the US Open one year by multiple, like 10 shots or something like that. And I thought,
There was a period.
Nobody does that.
There was a
even
period where
Nicholas didn't do that.
You could almost not get a bet on him. That was where it was. It was just a succession.
And I'll finish on one which is undeniable. I don't think anybody can deny it.
Let's deny it.
Strange enough, I know exactly. I'm a huge fan of American football. It's just one of those crazy situations where I get into it. As a kid, loved Joe Montana. He was my all-time, favourite player to watch for many, many things. In fact, when it just shows you how your mind thinks. I'm away on holiday. You're talking about where, and I said to my daughter, right, we're going to San Francisco, so we're now going to go and see the San Francisco 49ers Stadium. And she's like, Daddy, are they playing? I went, no, we're just going. And there's Joe Montana with the famous catch. He was fantastic, but undeniably, a guy comes along who doesn't fit what you would think would be the stereotypical GOAT in Tom Brady. Slow, 191 in the draft pick, and suddenly turns up with 7 Super Bowls, and he's the GOAT undeniably.
I beg to differ.
Well, go on.
Dan Marino was in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, right? That doesn't give him the edge. I don't know.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot of arguments even about Brady. Brady's career achievements. See, if you talk about achievements, that's the argument's over. But because of, guys will go back to to Johnny Unitas. They'll go back. Broadway Joe, they'll go back and say, because it's the great thing about sport. It's like baseball as well. They say, it's got to be Joe DiMaggio, and then people say, no, what about Mickey Mantle, or what about
Babe Ruth?
Yeah. It's because there's very little definition there. It's why sport. It's why sport persists, I think, because everybody's got an opinion on it.
So because it's emotional.
Everybody's got an opinion.
Yeah.
Again, your tie to certain players is an emotional tie. The reason why you gravitate to certain...
You could be sitting again next to somebody and have the exact opposite view of what you're watching in front of your pair of eyes.
You don't have to go to VAR to decide, right? It's see that after-match pub chat that makes sport. I think that is exactly what we're left with.
Yeah, I know we've strayed slightly off the beaten track because we always, in the Journos talk about issues surrounding football. But I thought it was a good pub chat Journos show.
Did you get my answer to the question?
What was? Give us it again.
Give us it again.
Name the current Scottish Premiership manager who's played with 3 World Cup winners. Name the players and the manager.
Right, this is not a Davy Martindale type of thing, is it? Right, so it's he's played with 3
World Cup winners.
Yeah, that's a good shout, Hugh. Can you even? We're talking. It's definitely
McInnes.
not. It's not
McInnes.
That's when we got one.
Ivarsh.
That's a great answer. You've dug that out from nowhere. Well done.
Yeah, that's definitely.
But you're not going to get one of the other ones.
Did he play? He wouldn't have played in the Gattuso era, would he?
Yes.
Come
2,
on,
right?
doing you in it.
Right, go on then.
The last one, maybe somebody played with West Brom or something like that.
Is there another Frenchman? Or is it?
Well, I'm not going to give you the answer.
Right, okay, but hey, I've got to. I'm not caring. I've got
How long have we got? Okay, there is another Frenchman.
I had a feeling it's another Frenchman that he played with, and he played in that Rangers side.
And if he was a bottle of wine, he's got a name that would be perfect for it.
Ah, right, okay. Why can I not think of the Frenchman?
You'll get
it. Who played? He played in the World Cup. Go on, give us his name.
Charbonnier.
Charbonnier. He was
a bottle of Charbonnier, please.
Yes, absolutely. I did not too badly there, Hugh.
I got the answer.
You get McInnes, which I think is great as well.
You had to drink the wine.
Absolutely, it had to be exactly. And of course, all the way through that, Patsy will probably come off the programme and say, "I can't believe Alison never reacted to my Henri Leconte gag." But thankfully, I decided just to brush over it halfway through the show. So, as far as we're concerned,
do you have an audience at home today?
I'm afraid so. I won't have a home today.
Who's the GOAT in all of the sporting genres? Who is the king of kings that you think deserves the mention? Is it just about somebody that grew up in your own generation, or is it down to stats, or is it down to the way they played? It's a great pub argument. Hopefully you've enjoyed us arguing about it and debating who's the greatest club side ever. Give us your thoughts, give us your reasoning behind why you got to that decision as well. You might agree or disagree with us, but that's the joy of sport. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button to PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. But if you hit subscribe to PLZ Soccer's Premium, you get a chance to get in there and win yourself 2 tickets to the Champions League final, flights and accommodation. All you have to do is subscribe and you're in the prize draw. Good luck with that as well. Thanks to Hugh MacDonald. Brilliant to have him on the show with Gordon Parks and Alison McConnell, and from myself, Peter Martin. Thank you to you for downloading the podcast and, of course, subscribing to our channel. Please just hit that button and show us your support. Thanks for listening and watching.